Hello my friends, we're still in CS50 week 2 called loops, and today's tutorial is about problem set vanity plates. It has actually some nice things to learn, and in this problem set we're gonna deal with string methods. We're gonna check the string for digits, we're gonna look for letters, we're gonna check whether this string has both letters and digits or numbers. We're gonna know about indexing or the index. Also, we will deal with slicing the index, how to get some pieces of the index, and we're going to also learn how to use if statements with multiple conditions, and we're going to use, of course, the for loop. Without further ado, let's read the problem set in details. Let's read the problem set to get an idea about the challenge that we're going to solve today. In Massachusetts, home to Harvard University, it's possible to request a vanity license plate for your car with your choice of letters and numbers instead of random ones. Among the requirements, though, are, and this is what we care about, to know the requirements of the plate that we're gonna choose. Based on the requirements, we're gonna get the valid or the invalid output that we're going to see in a moment. What is the first requirement? All the vanity plates must start with at least 2 letters. So each vanity plate must start with at least 2 letters. Vanity plates may contain a maximum of 6 characters, a mix between letters and numbers, and a minimum of 2 characters. So not less than 2 characters and not more than 6 characters. All these things and all these conditions are going to be taken into consideration while we're working on the project. What is the third requirement? Numbers cannot be used in the middle of the plate. Here we have to start with letters and end with numbers, because numbers cannot be in the beginning and also it cannot come in the middle of the plate, so they have to come at the end. As we can read here, they must come at the end. For example, AAA 222, this is a valid because it starts with at least 2 letters, and the length of the plate is 6 characters, and when we have a number, the number comes in the end, so no letters follow the numbers. When there is a number, the number comes at the end of the text or of the string. On the other hand, AAA 222A, this is an invalid or unacceptable, or this would be a wrong plate number, because why? We have a number, but after the number follows a letter, so the number comes in the middle. So this is not gonna be an acceptable plate. Here is also another condition. The first number used cannot be 0. And this is going to be a little bit confusing, but we're going to solve it while we're working the project. So once we use a number, the number cannot start with 0. So we cannot say, for example, here, we cannot start with 0, 2. But we can say 2 and then 0. The last condition here, no periods or spaces or punctuation marks are allowed. We're allowed only to use letters and digits, or letters and numbers. We cannot use special characters or spaces or punctuations. We're going to create a file called plates.py, implement the program, prompts the user for a vanity plate. So we're going to use the input as it's shown down here, and then output either valid if all requirements of all these requirements are met. So we're going to output valid if all requirements are met, or if one of these conditions is false or not met, we're going to output invalid. We're going to assume that any letters in the user's input will be an uppercase. Let's structure our program for the below, wherein is valid. This is the function that we're going to build. It will return either true if all requirements met, or it will return false if one of the requirements or one of the conditions is not true. We're going to assume that the S, which is here, the S will be a string, You're welcome to implement additional functions for is valid to call, for example, one function per requirement. We're gonna solve this out in a moment. Let's have a look at the hint. Recall that the string comes with quite a few methods. We're gonna see one of them, or actually we're gonna see four of them. Much like a list, string is a sequence of characters. So the string is a sequence of characters. It has a similarity with the list, which means it can be sliced. And also we're going to talk about slicing in a moment. It can be sliced into shorter strings with syntax like S, double braces, I, colon, J. I is the starting of the slicing and J is the ending of the slicing. For example, or for instance, if S is CS50, so this is a string, a sequence of characters, but the difference between it and the list, it doesn't have braces or brackets. Then if we want to slice this S string, which equals CS50, then S open and close brackets 0 colon 2, it means give me the first index, which is S, and the second index, the first index 0, which is C, and index number 1, which is S, and then stop on index 2. So index number 2, or the last digit here, it means the ending or the stop of the index. So the result will be CS. Why CS? Because we are asking for index 0 and 1, and we will stop on index number 2. Here I've summarized the conditions and I've copied the code that were given in the problem set. I've only changed one thing here in the problem set itself. We're given only main, but it's a better behavior to use if name equals main, then call main, and we have shown this in an earlier video that I will post the link for it in the description of this video. So let's go to the to-do list. Here or today in this problem set, we're going to deal with some string methods. The first string method is .isdigit. Why we use dot? This is the difference between methods and functions. By the way, methods are also functions, but when you get a little bit advanced in Python, you will use, or you will know how classes work, and that's why there is a difference in the way we use methods than the way we use functions. So the string, then dot, then the method, then open brackets. So .isdigit checks if the string has only digits or numbers. If it has only numbers, it will return true, and if it has other things, it will return false, and we will see this. So let's try to apply this here. I've created a file called main.py, and let's create a string called s, and s will equal hello, let's say 1, 2, 3. And we want to check first if the string is all digits or all numbers. Numbers and digits are the same meaning. So we will use print right away, and s dot is digit. We'll close the parentheses, and here we will run the program python of main.py, and the result is false. Why false? Because it's not only numbers, it has numbers 1 to 3, and it has letters, which are the sequence of characters of hello. If I change this string and delete hello and run the program again, we will get true, because now the string s is all numbers or only numbers. Let's go back to hello, and this time we're going to use the other method, which is alpha. So is_alpha, as I'm writing here, it checks if all characters in a string are alphabetic. For example, letter, or in other words, letters only. Let's write it here, from A to Z, or from A to Z in capital. So if the string has only alphabets like A to Z in small letters or A to Z in capital letters, the return result will be true. If it has other things like numbers output, it will be false. So let's try this out. So is alpha, and what do you expect? Let's run the program. False. Why false? Because the string here, the S string, which I'm checking using this method, is alpha. It has both alpha and it has digits. So if I delete the digits here, so let's run the program again, and now it gives me true because all the characters are alphabetic characters or alphabets or letters. The third method we have is isalnum. Al, it stands for alphabet, and num, it stands for numbers. So as you expected, it's checking for the mix. Does the string have a mix between numbers and letters or not? So let's go back to 1, 2, 3. Also, it means that this text or the string is not empty. So it checks on the string if it has letters, if it has numbers, or it has either letters or numbers, and it's not empty. So if one of these conditions is met, the output will be true. Letters found, it will be true. Numbers found, it will be true. It's not an empty string, it will be true. Is all num, and guess what? If I run the program, it will give me true because the string, it has letters and numbers. Let's delete the numbers, run the program, it will give me true. Let's change hello to only 1, 2, 3, and also it will give me true. Let's delete the 1, 2, 3, and now it's false because I don't have any characters. Let's go back to hello 1, 2, 3, and let's add, for example, space, and let's check. Now I'm getting false because isalnum, it checks only for alphabets and numbers, checks for letters and numbers. It doesn't allow for special characters like a space, or for example like a dot, or like an and, or like an $. It doesn't allow that. If one of these things are there inside the string, it will give me false. So only letters or numbers or both are allowed. Otherwise, it will give me false. Now we come to the .index method. So here I'm having the string, and as we know in programming, each string or each character in the string, it has a place, it has a location inside the string. So the normally in programming we start with index 0, so we call these locations indexes, or the places where the characters are located. So the H, it's located in index 0, the E in index 1, the L index 2, second L index 3, and so forth. So let's check, for example, s.index, and here the difference between the .index and the .isalnum, .isalpha, .isdigit. The difference is these methods, we don't write anything inside, they don't have arguments. So we leave the braces or the brackets, we leave them empty. But in index, we cannot leave it empty. We have to insert something because we are calling this method to check for something. So what are we checking for? We're checking for H. So let's assume that we are telling Python what is the index number for the H inside the S string. Let's run the program. It will give me 0. So the output of .index, it will be a number. So here, these three methods, their output is a Boolean, whether it's true or false. But when it comes to .index, the difference, we have some differences. The .index, the argument must be a string. What is the string? The string that we are looking for. As for example here, we are writing a character H inside the string, and the output in .index will be a number, which is the index number. Let's try another thing, L, and here, as you see, we have two L's. And let's see what index number would I have. Why 2? Because we get the first occurrence of the letter. For example, if here I write H, and then I check here for what is the index of h? As you expected, what do you expect? I will get 0, or I will get, let's say, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Would I get 5 or 0? I will get 0, because the output of index, yes, it's a number. Yes, it's the index number, but it's the first occurrence of the index number. There are other ways to check for the other indexes or the other indices for the other letters, but in today's session we're not gonna need it. What about slicing? Let's say s2 equals s. How do we slice? We use these brackets and we use the colon. In the left hand of the colon, we write the start of the index. So here comes the relation between the index and slicing. So index method and the slicing way of cutting the string into pieces, they have a deep relation. So here inside, when I'm slicing the text, I want to slide this text or the contents of S. I want to take some pieces of it. I use the brackets and then I use a colon. In the left hand of the colon, I use the first index that I want to start off. So let's say I want to start slicing from index 1, which is E, and I want to end in index, let's say I want to just these 3 letters, E double L. So E is index 1, the first L index 2, the second L is index 3. Shall I write 3 here? No, I will write 4, because 4 is the end of the index and it's gonna be ignored. If I write 3, it will give me index 1 and index 2. So if I want index 1 and 2 and 3, I will write starting from index 1, ending in index 4. And let's print S2, run the program, ELL. So now I'm slicing this index. I have taken only a slice, which is the 3 letters ELL. Can I ignore this and write it like I delete this number? Yes, but what would happen in this case? What will happen is the slicing will start from the very first index, which is index 0, and also it will end in index 4. It will ignore index 4. Let's try this. Yes, help. Because I did not give it a starting point, so it started by default from the beginning, which is index 0, 1, 2, 3, and it will, when it came to 4, it stopped and ignored index number 4. The function length is a very simple function, and we've already talked about it before. If I want to get the length of the string, or how many characters inside the string, so I can say print length of S, run the program. Because we have a print here, run again. So 9 characters. The length of S is 9 characters. Let's try this with S2. S2 has 4 characters. Why is that? Because we told it to slice the main string and take only 4 characters, starting from index 0, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. They are 4 characters, so the length of the S2 is 4. If I open the print again, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 characters, so the length of it is 4. Now let's move on to the solution of the problem set. I've actually summarized the conditions. The plate must be alphanumeric. It has letters and numbers. The second condition, minimum of 2 characters and maximum of 6 characters, mixed between letters or numbers. The first 2 characters must be letters. So we're going to check for the first 2 characters of the plate of the string. The numbers cannot be used in the middle. So in case we find a number, and this is going to be the controversial part, but we're going to see how to solve it. Numbers cannot be used in the middle. Numbers must come at the end. First number used cannot be 0. So in case we use a number, the first number cannot be 0. No periods, no spaces, no punctuation marks are allowed. So we are only allowed to use letters and numbers only, and this is the code that we are given in the problem set itself. So let's start hard coding the function. Here the main, the function main, it will ask the user to input the plate number using the variable plate, and then it uses a condition if the function output here that we're gonna build right now, if the output of this function using the variable as argument, if it's true, we're gonna output valid. So here the function output will be either true or false. S will be the argument, and we're gonna check for these conditions first. If the text or the argument here is alphanumeric, so we're gonna use f s dot yes, as we came to know here. Let's open this again, the to-do list. We're gonna use the isalnum. So if s dot isalnum, like this. Can we add another condition in the same line? Of course, for sure. Not maybe sometimes it's not the best practice, but we're gonna use the and to add another condition. So the first condition, we're gonna check if the text is alphanumeric, and then we're gonna check for the length of the text. So here we have done checking that the number or the text is alphanumeric. Then we're gonna check if it's minimum 2 characters and maximum of 6 characters. We can do it one of two ways. And now we're gonna check for the length. So we're gonna use the length function, len function. Len of text is less than or equal to 2, and the len of s is greater than or equal to 6. Is there a better way to do this? Yes, there is a better way to do this. We can remove this and length of s because we already used them, and we can move this to be here, and the length of s to be in the middle. So if the length of s is less than 2 and the length of s is greater than or equal to 6, do we have any other conditions to check? Yes, we have another condition we can write in the same line, which is the first 2 characters must be letters. How can we check for the first 2 characters? Yes, using slicing. So how can we slice? How to check for the first 2 characters using slicing? So we're gonna write the s. How to slice? Yes, we're gonna use the brackets and the colon. The first 2 characters, yes, we're gonna start with 0. So if I'm starting with 0, so I don't have to write anything, then we will end with 2 because we need the first 2 letters in index 0 and index 1. So I write here the ending index is index number 2 because it will end the slicing and it will be ignored. But I want to check these first 2 characters must be letters. What is the function that I use to check for letters? Yes, is alpha. So dot is alpha and close the brackets and then close the F. What if all these conditions are met? So what if all these conditions are true? By the way, let's check our to-do list here. Is all numeric? We have already checked that with .isalnum. Minimum 2 characters, maximum 2 characters of letters and numbers. We already checked that. .isalnum. First 2 letters must be letters. First 2 characters must be letters. We already checked that. First 2 characters of the string s dot is alpha must be alphabetic characters. And then we have to move on to the numbers, so we can check this. Numbers cannot be used in the middle. Numbers must come at the end. First number used cannot be 0. And by the way, we can delete this because we already checked no periods, spaces, or punctuation marks are allowed. We already checked that when we use .isalnum. We can either remove it or move it up there. So now we have finished checking on all these conditions. Now we have checked for these conditions. If all these conditions are okay, we need to loop inside the string to check for the numbers. To check for these conditions, numbers cannot be used in the middle, and numbers must come at the end. So if there is a number, no letters should follow the number. And if there is a number, the first number or the first digit of the number cannot be 0. How to do that? Let's see how to loop or start the iteration over the string. So to start the iteration, we will start the loop with for I and s. We defined a variable I to iterate over each character inside this text, which will be the plate number later on. So now we will start iterating through this plate or the argument s of the function. S is a text which will equal the plate number. We will start iterating through the characters, and we're going to check if this I or the first occurrence of I is a digit. And what we're going to use here, we're going to use .isdigit. So we will start inside the for loop. We're going to start in if condition. So if I .isdigit here dot, what will happen? Now we need to find the index of this I, because if the based on the index of the I, we're gonna check other things, like if something follows this index. For example, if I have a number in the last two indices or last two indexes of the plate and nothing follows, so it's gonna be fine. But if I have digits, like for example 2 digits like 22, and then I have a letter after this index, so this 22 is not in the end, so it's gonna be a false. Let's give an example here. If I say CS50, for example, or let's say CS50P, here I'm gonna loop or iterate over this text. So the first will be C and then S. They are not digits, and once the code finds a digit, it will be digit 5. It will check the index of this digit, and then it will check the following indexes. The following index will be 0, and then it will check after this index, is there a letter? If there is a letter after this index, output will be false. But if it's like that, CS50 and the last two indexes, here index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, so index 2 and index 3 are the last indexes of the text, then the result will be true because nothing follows and the number comes at the end. But let's say if there is a letter in the end, so that means that the number comes in the middle, which is wrong. And here we have a condition that numbers must come at the end, right? If it comes at the end like this, so it's going to be true. If something follows like that, so it means the number is in the middle, so it's going to be false. In order to check this, we have to save the index of the digit. So we can create another variable called j to save the index of I. And how to save the index of I? Yes, as we talked about before, we are going to use .index. So the j will equal to the s dot index what? Dot index j. So we are trying to find the index inside the string of S, the contents of S, but we are targeting the I. The I, which means the digit. The digit is in which index. And the practical way to do this is to save the index inside another variable. Let's call it variable j, in order to compare it if it's or check if it's the last index or it's not, or if not, it's not the last index. If it's the last index, the digits that we are working on, nothing follows them, but no letters follow these indexes, so we're fine. If another letter follows this index or these indexes of the digits, then it's gonna be wrong. So that means that we're gonna start another if condition to check for two things. To check if the first occurrence is not 0, so we are fine, and nothing follows the index of these digits, that means that the number comes at the end. We need to focus here because this is the most complicated part. We need to check first if the first occurrence of I is a digit and this digit does not equal 0 as per the conditions here. First number used cannot be 0, so we're gonna check if I is a digit. First of all, please save the index of this I inside a variable called j, and if the first occurrence of this digit is not a 0, plus if the index of this number does not or is not followed by anything, that means that this is the last index, so we are fine, and we're gonna return true. How to do this? We're gonna start an if condition. So we're gonna say if int I. Why did we use int I? Because the I here inside the S is a text, because I comes from an input and the input is a text by default. So we need to check for a digit, and in order to check for a digit we need to convert it to an integer. So if this integer of I does not equal 0, and so now we're checking for the starting the digit that will start the number. If the first digit is not 0, and let's check for the index and for the slicing. As we said, slicing goes like that, and the first of the index, shall we start from the beginning? No, we will start from the beginning of the digits. How or what is the index of the beginning of the digits? This one, which is j. As we said, we are saving the first index of the digit inside the j variable. So please start slicing from the first index, and here where will we end? We will not give an ending because we want the checking process to check until the end of the slicing. And we will also use dot is digit to check for me that all the indexes that will come after the first occurrence will be digits. So here we said it's less than 6. So if the length is greater than 2 and less than or equal to 6, this is the length, and first two indexes are alphabets or letters. Then we start a loop. We start a loop as I, variable I, inside the S or inside the plate, and then we start checking after the loop if the I is a digit. So we will check the first occurrence or the first character. If it's a digit, then we have to hold and save the index of the digit or the first occurrence of the digit inside of j, and then we continue checking if the integer I does not equal to 0 and the index starting from j, which is the first occurrence, until the end is digit. what will happen? We will return true. And if one of these conditions are false, we will return false. So let's check again. Now it's invalid. Now we're working fine. Let's check hello. Hello is valid. So let's check hello world. World is all capital. Yes, it's invalid because it has a special character and a space, and this is wrong. Let's check for goodbye. Invalid because goodbye it has more than 6 characters. And let's check for CS50. CS50 is fine. Let's check for CS05. This is wrong because we have, yes, the number comes at the end, but it starts with digit 0. So 05 is invalid. If we say 50, 50 is invalid because we need to have a mix between numbers and letters, and the first 2 characters must be letters as per the first condition here is alphanumeric, and the first 2 characters must be letters. Let's give it another check for CS50, but here comes P. So invalid. Why? Because we have a number, but it ends with a letter. So the number comes in the middle. This one here must be invalid. Why? Because it has a special character here, which is the dot. Check with H. H is invalid. We need to have minimum of two characters. And also out of time. It's more than 6 characters and it's invalid. This is the first solution. Yes, do not be shocked because this is not the best design, and I have another solution for you. So if this solution is fine and it's enough for you, so you can end the video here and you can go back here and we can go down and check 50 and you will find everything is fine. And then if you work on the Visual Studio Code online, you can copy the code and paste it there and then submit it with submit 50. If you're interested in the other solution and a better design, so let's wait for the next solution. So if you're still here, that means that you want to learn more. We've seen this solution and I told you that it's not the best design, but if you're still here, you're interested to know why. If you have a look at this line, you will know that in only one line we have multiple conditions. For example, we are checking if the text is alphanumeric, and we are checking the length if it's greater than 2, and if it's greater than or less than 2, and if it's less than or equal to 6 characters. And also we are checking if the first 2 characters are alphabets or letters. So these are like multiple conditions, and the code or the program will check all of them in order to move on to the first step. This is not the best design. Why should we do this while we can check only for one condition and return false if this condition is not met or it's not true? And this is a better design. If one of the conditions is not met, so we need to stop the program right away and return false. Why should we check all this in order to return true or false? That's why I'm telling you this is not the best design. Also, I have another idea for checking the digit or for checking the first occurrence of the digit, and we're gonna see this right now. We're gonna check one by one, and if we have something wrong and if we have a condition that is not met, right away we will return false. For example, we will check for the length. If length of s, and here let's put it inside braces, and we say here it's greater than or equal to, sorry, it should be this one. So here it's greater than or equal to 2, or it's less than or equal to 6. This is the first condition, but we're not going to check this way. We're going to use the word not. Why are we using not? To stop the program right away in order if this is not the case, if the length is not greater than or equal to 2, or the length of the text or the plate is not less than or equal to 6, right away we're going to return false. So we will save time, and the CPU, once one of the conditions is not met, we will stop right away and hand out the false to the user, or to the function itself, which is the isValid function. Let's move on to check for, also we will use not. So if s, or if not s dot is alphanumeric is all num, what if the text is not alphanumeric? Also we're gonna return false. If s, let's slice the s and we put a semicolon, we need to check the first two characters, so we will end with 2 to check the character in index 0, the character in index 1. If these characters, or if the slice of the first two characters dot is what is alpha, and as we used to say, if not, then exactly we will return false. In order to iterate through the characters and find the number and find the first occurrence or the index of this number, we're gonna define a variable called digit count, and the digit count will equal to 0, which means that until now we did not encounter any digit. So we will define a variable called digit count, and we're gonna start a for loop. Let's say for char in s. Now we're start looping. Instead of using I used char or character. You can use anything. For character in s, now we're gonna check to see the digits. So if this character dot is digit, here comes the nice part, or the little bit complicated part. If this character, or once I meet a character inside the s or inside the plate, if this character is a digit, well, hold on, let's see what do we want from the code to do. We will check for the digit count. If the digit count equals 0, so this is the default, this is the first occurrence. This means that if the first occurrence of this digit is 0, this is the meaning of the variable digit count equals 0. This means the first occurrence is 0. This is the alternative way of saving the index to j in the first solution. So if digit count equals to 0 and the character equals 0, now we have a problem, because we said, as per the conditions, that the first number used cannot be 0. So that means the first number, digit count equals 0. This is the first occurrence or the first number. And in the same time, this character or the iteration or the variable or the occurrence equals 0. Then that means we have a problem. So we return false, as we used to do in this code. Once you see a problem, once one condition is not met, right away return false and do not continue. And what else should we do? We should raise the digit count by 1, because once we meet a digit, then the next occurrence will raise the variable by 1. So if the first digit, let's say, equals 7, so the first occurrence, this is the first occurrence, okay, 0, and the character is not equal to 0, then it will not return false, and then it will add 1 to the digit count and then start looping again. Here we're going to use another thing, which is elif the digit count is greater than 0, which means that if this is not the first occurrence of the digit, or if we found a digit, no letters should follow. This is the meaning of elif digit count is greater than 0. That means that if the digit count is greater than 0, that means that we finished iterating through the numbers, and if you find anything else after this number, which means that the digit count is greater than 0, that's why we are incrementing here. So also return false. Did you see how many times we returned false? That means that each time a condition is not met, we have to stop the program and hand out a false to this as a return value of the function in order to save time and to save the usage of the CPU. Else, if everything is fine, then if everything went fine, then outside this for loop, we're gonna return true. So here I adjusted some indentation, and let's recap the code. We are checking things one by one. The first check here we're doing is the length. The length of the plate must be greater than or equal to and less than or equal 6. If this is okay, we're fine. If it's not, we will return false. The second condition here, we're checking the type of the characters, if they are a mix between numbers and characters. If not, we're going to return false. And the third condition here, we're checking for the first two characters, if they are not alphabets from A to Z, and then we're gonna return false. And then we're gonna check for the digits or for the letters. We have initiated a counter. We called it digit count, a variable which will equal 0 by default, and then we start iterating to search for the numbers, whether they are in the end and whether the number starts with 0 or not. We have created this variable as an indicator or as a counter to save the occurrence of the digits instead of saving the index as j, as we've seen in the first solution. So for character in S, if this character is digit, this is why you are building this block. If this character is a digit, and if this digit count is 0, that means if this is the first occurrence of the digit and the digit equals to 0, so it's the first occurrence, and in this first occurrence it equals to 0, then we will return false and increment the counter by 1. And if the digit count is greater than 0 and still we are having a digit here, that means that some other letters will follow, because we have countered a digit and then we have incremented the counter by 1, so we finished the digits, and then the digits are greater than 0 and there is something follows the digit. That means the digit is not at the end of the plate, so also we will return false. This is a better design. So let's check this again. Let's run the program. CS50 is valid. Let's check with CS05, invalid because the number starts with 5. Check again, CS50 but with P, so it's invalid. You are free to choose whether this version of the solution or the first version, whatever it's easier for you. Work on it, change things, try to understand the logic of the solution. Whatever is the best for you, choose it and check 50. This is very important, as shown here, before submitting the file. If check 50 is fine, then submit your code. Good luck. Thank you for watching and see you in the next problem set.